My husband and I met while I was in service in Germany, both playing a Dungeons & Dragons game. A few years later, we moved to Okinawa, Japan? I think I got it. Yes! Anyway, we found a new group on base. It was very episodic and freeform. The first one to show up with an adventure ran it, and whoever could make it played it. We were all active duty service members, so scheduling was impossible. No one remembered the plot. My husband and I fell back on our classic paladin and rogue duo. The backstory was the rogue, me, had rescued the paladin, him, from the dungeon of the master of the Thieves Guild in exchange for his protection from said guild. After a time, rogue fell in love with paladin, but held it in because guys like him don't get along with girls like her. Later, rogue acquires a love potion and is looking for a princess so her hero can have a happily ever after. In real life, I just wrote on my character sheet and the DM was okay with it. We meet the other team members, a wizard male and a druid female, and go into a dungeon crawl. There are giant spiders which freak the rogue out completely, but when one attacks the paladin, she goes charging in to rescue him. This tips off wizard, and he goes looking for a love potion or crafting recipe of his own to give to paladin to make him madly fall in love with rogue. Above board, out of character, the druid's player let us know her backstory. She is a princess who has forsaken her country to follow the call of the wild. We all have a lot of fun joking about how this could play out in the game, and goes on and on and on until we end the day. The same time next week, and the dungeon master can't make it. We never got back to the game. In my head, wizard and druid are happily married, living in a little cottage in the forest, not too far from a city, and neither of them knows why. The real horror strikes again. Scheduling. Not caused by natural disasters and Godzilla this time, simply caused by the fact that when you're on a military base, you're busy a lot. But hey, you two actually got married, like in real life. So you know what? I say that in terms of D&D or TTRPG relationships, all's well ends well with this one. I mean, we can't say the same for all of them, but you know, this one is good. I have recently started DMing for 3 of my friends after not DMing for years. I decided to start out with a module and transition to a full-scale campaign once it's complete. We are 4 sessions in so far. I love all of my players. One of them has DM'd for the rest of the group many times, but loves being a player also. I'm currently in 2 other campaigns with him, both of us as players, while he takes a DMing hiatus. He's extremely knowledgeable on the rules and limitations of the game, and knows how to legally exploit them to the highest limit. One of his reoccurring schemes is making money by buying a bunch of products, like apple, flour, raw iron, etc., and a horse and wagon, and traveling from town to town as we adventure and selling it for minimal profit. Like, very minimal, but he insists on doing this in every game, and takes up a bit of time talking with other dungeon masters on selling it, haggling it for a better price, and then immediately buying a different product to take us to the next town. Sometimes this is just handled out of game, as there have been a couple of times he's argued with the DM on the handbook prices and had to defend his purchases. In one game, he bought a ton of apples with the intent of letting them ferment so that we could sell and make cider. We spent a good deal of time calculating the time of fermentation and then selling cider with multiple rolls to convince random townspeople to stop by our roadside stand. It was really funny, but none of the other players were really into it, and I could tell they just wanted to get back to the actual story, which is Curse of Strahd. I know this conflict has been bloody. I know we lost Irina. But what matters is, we stay true to each other. Strahd may break our bodies, but he cannot break our unity. We'll beat him back. Together, alright? If we're all, hey, what the hell are you doing? Oh, I'm getting ready for my banana stand setup. Dude, okay, aside from the fact that we're kind of having a moment here, who's gonna buy your fruit? The people here don't exactly have the money. They're a little too busy trying not to be eaten by zombies. Nonsense. There's always room in the world to fill up your belly, you know what I mean? Besides, I can hear some customers right now, and they sound very hungry. Yeah, dude, I don't think there's a... Wait, no! Wanna, like, help him? Nah. Just put him out of his misery in a second. I have enabled his antics every time because it technically does make us a few extra gold every time, and it makes him happy. But now I'm the DM. I'm wondering how far I should let him go with this when I know that my other players don't really care. This player also insists unlooting every monster that I have them fight, making a survival check to rip apart the creatures for salvageable parts and sell them later. For example, they recently fought an owlbear and he insisted on rolling to extract its eyeballs, feathers, pelt, and meat. Later on, he remembered the claws, but I insisted that he had forgotten about them in the moment and he could not say he also had taken those too. However, he did demand in the moment that he salvage a bunch of owlbear meat, as much as his character could carry encumbrance-wise anyway, and brought it back to the village for a barbecue. I told him he can't expect to loot monster corpses every time, and he said that it would depend on his rolls. He is proficient in survival and sleight of hand, which tracks. He also asked for a bag of holding in the future so that he could carry more things to sell, aka not be limited by his character's strength. I jokingly told him that he would never find a bag of holding, and we all laughed, but I'm starting to feel serious about it. It would be a great item for the whole party, but I know he would use it for his own personal side business of carrying around monster parts. Would I be the a-hole if I insisted he limit his looting? They will all have plenty of ways to make money as a party, so he would eventually have enough to buy a bag of holding, if not finding one while adventuring. I don't want to be a jerk because I know he enjoys doing side things like this, but it does cut into our playtime and leaves the other players standing around while he debates me on how many feathers he can find on the ground. I've told him we could discuss things like this out of game, but by then he actually requests more because he's had time to think about it and compiles a list of everything he could possibly resell. Please note, I truly do love all my players. I want them all to have fun. What would you do in this situation? Thank you for taking the time to read. Thank you for taking the time to send it in. Alright, so I've talked about this before on Campaign Diary, but looting is a major aspect of my games. However, general rule of thumb is my players roll a check, they roll d4s and d6s, and then they get what they get. My players cannot complain like, oh, what about the eyeballs? What about the pelt? If it's not on the loot table, you don't get it. Or at least if you do get it, it's not going to have any mechanical benefit. Even in a game like mine, this would be annoying, but at the same time, I love this kind of enthusiasm. I don't want to destroy it, and I think you don't either. Just tell him, like, look, this is taking up a lot of time at the table, and as a dungeon master, it's a lot for me to figure out every single individual part you can grab. Set up some kind of loot table system for the guy, find one online, there are plenty of free monster loot tables, and just say, hey, we're gonna stick with these whenever you're looting monsters. Also, text your other players individually to see how they feel about this, because this problem is two-pronged. Not only are you not enjoying this whole looting thing, but the other players might not be too. So figure that out, and then from there, decide how you're gonna handle the situation. But I don't think this needs to be some kind of explosion. This dude just seems enthusiastic, and I think that if you just temper it a little bit, I think you'll be able to solve this problem just fine. I'm trying to get my D&D campaign off the ground, but I just have problems visualizing the session, you know? I get this is supposed to be in your head, but it's hard for me to get ideas without something to look at. If only there were affordable maps for me to take inspiration from. Thank God for CzePeku. This video is sponsored by CzePeku, back once again to show you guys some of the best TTRPG maps that you can find on the market. I talk about these guys all the time, and for good reason. Not only are their maps extremely affordable, with you being able to get the base variant for every map they have released and every map they will release at only the $1 tier, as well as every single variant at only the $5 tier, but on top of that, the maps are truly quality. What you're getting here may be inexpensive, but it does not look cheap by any means. I mean, come on, look at this beached kraken. Amazing. At higher tiers, not only do you get the convenience of having these be instantly portable into the Foundry virtual tabletop, but you also get the absolutely gorgeous animated versions of these maps. Seriously, I cannot see a downside to getting these maps. Even if you don't start at those higher tiers, the base subscription will get you so many gorgeous maps for your players to enjoy in your own tabletop role-playing games. If you guys are interested in the incredible maps from CzePeku, you can head down into the description down below, pledge their Patreon, starting at just the $1 tier. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Thank you so much to CzePeku for sponsoring this portion of today's video, and without further ado, I'm going to turn back into an animated rat so that we can get back to the video. This is going to be half, wow, I can't believe they did this story, and half a, am I the a-hole kind of story, which does include the infamous, it's what my character would do line. But I promise, what I do is comparatively small potatoes and meant nothing in the long run. So this happened about a year back. I have been looking to join a new game, and a friend of mine offered, after checking with his dungeon master, to have me join in. They were playing a homebrew that used some of the Grim Hollow rules, the big one being transformations. All the players had at least 2 stages into transformations. I even got them to have me caught up in terms of power scaling with the others. I was a Dampier bard with transformations that turned me into a full-fledged vampire. I had the pirate background and was a morally ambiguous character. Not really evil, just held coin above morals. The party was looking for a boat to sail to a temple at sea that had been corrupted by an artifact from the Shadowfell that had now been awakened. The goal was to find it before some big bad did. They did not have the coin to pay me, my ship, and my men to get them there, but promised that I would get first pick of the loot as we found it until it added up to my asking fee. So I called my men up, and we got the ship moving. We sail forth, and the fog starts encroaching as we get to the sandbar at the entrance. I get in a rowboat and take them the rest of the way and tell my men to come back at sunup. We go to the temple, and we find it's more of a tomb. The moment we get inside, problems start to arise. We fight some undead that are popping up from inside some foul water that are just down the first set of stairs, and I start being dragged away. One of them yells, "Just leave him! We just needed his boat to get here!" Okay, I'm able to get out of the grasp and get to a safer position for the rest of the fight. After the fight, we find a bit of treasure, and before I can inspect any of it, it gets shoved into a portable hole. I bring up the contract we signed and said I would get first pick until we got to my fee, and they said, "Yeah, we were lying about that. We'll divide it up after we get out of here." I bring it up the fact that they signed a legally binding contract and they all just shrugged and ignored me. We went through a few more traps and encounters, and soon as we took a short rest, I took the time to restate my fee, and I was willing to negotiate a further fee for helping them through the rest of this place because the contract only said I needed to get them there, not get them back or help them through it. They responded by saying there was nothing in the contract stating they had to keep me safe either, and I said, well, if that's the case, perhaps I should just go back up and roll my boat back. And player 1 pulls out his weapon.
You wouldn't even make it to the entrance.
Okay, so now they have scammed me out of my pay, lied to me, left me to die or at least fend for myself alone, and threatened me. That just sounds like an average 9 to 5 hour Waffle House. I don't know what you're complaining about. More dungeons later, we are all hurt and my character had become the butt end of multiple jokes made by characters, players, and the Dungeon Master. We decided to take a long rest. I don't require sleep, just light activity, and refuse to go to sleep. Player 2, why don't you get some rest? I responded with, in all honesty, you have lied to me, cheated me, and threatened my life. There is no way I'm taking my eyes off any of you. How do I know you're not going to kill me in my sleep? And player 1 responded with, you don't. In that moment, I decided that this character would not get along with this party at all, at least anymore. They had done everything in their power to stop him from wanting to join them at all. So in the dead of night, I stealthed away from the camp, polymorphed into a bat, and flew away to the surface, where I took the rowboat back to where the ship anchored in the night and sailed back to shore. The party later acquired the artifact that was corrupting the waters and were able to flag down a different ship to get back to the shore and found no trace of my character or his ship and crew. Now, after all this happened, I had no ill will with the group as a whole. I had decided the character wasn't going to fit with a group that was doing what they did to him. So I made a new character that was aligned with the goals of the campaign and not the goal of the party. I actually gave 3 different characters for the DM to look over, and he denied each of them. I decided I would take a break to make a more accurate character for the lore, and the game slowly fell apart in favor of a new game I just didn't have any interest in. So yeah, I didn't so much betray the group as stay the course of my contract. They didn't pay for my services that I rendered, so I revoked said services. It probably just wasn't the right character for the campaign if that was the kind of stuff they aimed to pull on other brand new party members. It's interesting that the writer looked in that direction for this problem because honestly, the way bigger problem is the fact that the characters openly said, hey, let's leave this guy for dead. Because who would want to stay with a group who did that? Remember, you need to not only analyze the character's behavior, but also the player's behavior. Yeah, the characters are breaking a written contract, a legally binding agreement, whatever. Doesn't matter. What really matters is the players made an agreement with you as a group. and they are being actively hostile to somebody who's just joining the game, basically hazing you when you try to join the party. I'm not so much concerned about what the characters are doing to my character, it's what the players are doing to me. Like, I just joined this group and you're all acting like jerks. Why would I, as a player, stick around? Frankly, if what your characters would do is lie, cheat, threaten to kill, and leave for dead, I mean, you might be a great person, but dang, your character sucks! The actors in the story are myself as the Game Master, Cleric is a very experienced Game Master and player. He plays a Warforged Cleric in the campaign I run, and GM'd one of the campaigns that convinced me to homebrew my own game. Fighter is also a very experienced player, and I think also a Game Master. He plays a Tiefling Fighter in my campaign, and has been in parties alongside me in other games. Monk is an experienced player, Game Master and homebrewer. She plays a Human Monk / Barbarian multi-class in my campaign, but was a mid-campaign addition. Barbarian is a player whose experience level I don't really know, but he's good at looking things up when needed. He plays a half-orc barbarian in my game. He also is a mid-campaign addition. And finally, Druid, the problem player. I played in a campaign with her before, but she left that one pretty fast because her character died. In my campaign, she plays an Aarakocra Druid. With all that introduction out of the way, let's talk about the campaign. It's an open world almost entirely of my design. Fighter created one of the countries for his backstory, and I used stat blocks from many fan-made and unofficial materials. I designed it to be roleplay heavy, and reward random exploration and going off track. The campaign starts off rocky because I wasn't really confident and was having issues with balancing, but everyone said they were having fun. Druid's first incident was to use Fairy Fire when Fighter and Cleric were both in the range. Annoying, but hey, not a big deal. Then she blatantly rejected a magic item specifically meant for her without thinking that I might have given it to her for a specific reason. She still never used it after Fighter and Cleric finally convinced her to take it. The next issue was when Druid identified the real big bad evil guy in my campaign after two vaguely related clues. For context, I made it so all the players would think the BBEG was a particular character before meeting that character, but nope, Druid figured out my plot twist almost immediately. I figured that was okay though, since the clues were a bit obvious once they were connected. Druid started subtly steering the party towards the big bad evil guy, despite a few attempts I made to make exploration more enticing. I got a little worried, but it wasn't enough for me to make a call out. But then, Monk and Barbarian got introduced. Their characters added quite a bit of chaos, but in the perfectly timed comedic relief sort of way, though Cleric already did provide a little bit of that. Everyone was bouncing off each other in great ways, except for Druid. She started removing herself from roleplay when Monk and Barbarian started getting chaotic. She minimized roleplay outside of when her character was important or useful. It all really hit the fan when I introduced a particular NPC. I'll spare the details, but this NPC was supposed to be a clue about a civilization that was supposedly wiped out, since he was a member of that previous civilization. He was supposed to be incredibly vague about his people, simply saying it was safer for them to hide. Druid didn't like that because she immediately figured out why they were important, so she kept pressing the NPC with questions until I, as the Game Master, broke and gave her a coded message to the location of the secret civilization. The group wasn't supposed to go there until much later, so I had to quickly rework the campaign so my level 9 party didn't fight a big bad evil guy that was intended for level 17 plus characters. After that, I started to introduce character arcs as planned. Cleric had the first major character moment, and Druid started butting into that moment. After that session, everyone was pretty mad. What made it worse is that everyone but Druid saw how frustrated I was getting. This is still my first time GMing a full campaign after all. The straw that broke the camel's back was a 2-session mini-campaign. Fighter's character arc is coming up fast, and he couldn't come to the session for 2 weeks, so the rest of us decided that I would run a mini-campaign in the same world as the main campaign. Everyone made a criminal character, except Druid. She noped out immediately when she found out it was a criminal campaign. When I told the others about her character concept, we all agreed that it wouldn't have taken more than a few seconds to make that character fit in. That's when I told everyone what happened behind the scenes during the session with that particular NPC I mentioned earlier. This ticked Cleric and Monk off a ton. Druid had already interrupted a big character moment for Cleric and pretty much refused to interact with Monk outside of scolding her character. She also messaged me with stuff that was way more than I was comfortable with, even after I kindly asked her to stop and tried to push a couple of topics I wasn't comfortable with either, after I told her not to talk about said topics. I talked with everyone, indirectly for a couple of them, and half the party had a hard vote to give Druid the boot, while the other half said they wouldn't mind seeing Druid go, though they didn't want to be rude to Druid. So I took that as basically a unanimous vote to boot Druid from the campaign. I felt pretty bad about it, especially after Druid's very short response saying she understood and she was sorry. We're getting back to the main campaign tomorrow as of writing this, so we'll see how this works out. They can't railroad the party towards the big bad evil guy anymore, so maybe the party will take more time to explore and enjoy this world I worked so hard to develop. The one bright side is that I feel this experience has really helped me grow as a game master. Sorry the story was so long, I actually cut a ton of details to make it shorter, but Druid did a lot to get on the party's nerves and make the campaign hard for me to run. So, was I the a-hole for booting Druid? Does everyone in this video think they're the bad guy? Oh my goodness. What are you... Nope, stop. Cut that out. We're gonna be doing jazz music every story at this rate. Look, is Druid the worst problem player ever? No, but at the end of the day, they're making the game less fun for you and the group. Maybe in some other games, this wouldn't be that big of a deal. Somebody who somehow miraculously discovers every single plot twist, someone who's just very, very focused on directing the plot of the game. But at the end of the day, those things do not belong in this game. You're trying to build out a mystery and the other players are feeling compelled by it. It does kind of suck when somebody immediately solves everything with very little effort. It does suck when a player is trying to direct everyone else away from their own goals to focus unanimously on just one singular goal. It sucks when a player makes you feel uncomfortable by sharing personal details about their life that you frankly don't want to know. These are choices Druid made, and you tried to communicate with her about them, but she kept on doing it. These aren't small mistakes. They're small choices that she made, and in the end, those choices have consequences. She might want it to be one way, but I'm sorry, based on the group vote, it's the other way. Danger, but like not really. My campaign of a year and a half just wrapped up earlier this month, and our group is taking a break for a bit due to the DM needing to be out of the country for a few days because of work. This left me looking around Roll20 for other games to fill the void. I found one that seemed promising. The poster said they were a paid dungeon master who was looking to run a free game because they had ideas and they were just really excited about it. The setting would take place in the Forgotten Realms, and they had good knowledge of all that lore, and they wanted to weave it into the story. I like free games, and I like the Forgotten Realms, so this sounded great to me. I applied, got in, and I was really excited. The cast of characters in the sorry tale goes like this. Me, I just wanted to play a druid. The dungeon master, the guy who got my hopes up. Unlucky, you'll soon see why. Quiet guy, he didn't say much, but it was important the few times he did say something. Teen was part of the problem, and jerk was the main problem. So a few hours before the game, the dungeon master was confirming everyone would be able to make it and reminding people to have their sheets ready to go in Roll20 and that they had a stickler for that. Teen kicks off our problems by posting weird rambles about Skyrim mods, poems about watches, I'm not kidding, and complaining about how little allowance he gets from his parents. This wasn't advertised as an 18+ game, but I was leery of letting someone who was obviously a minor in on things, but you know, that's not my call. For whatever reason, the DM didn't kick Teen for trolling us or whatever he was trying to do. Eventually, it was almost time to start the game, and naturally, despite being repeatedly told to have a character ready to go in Roll20, Unlucky and Teen had not done so. Unlucky had also rolled truly awful stats, so even though he'd said no rerolls, the DM wanted to give Unlucky another chance since his character would have been trash otherwise. Jerk was vehemently opposed to this and started going on about how that is not acceptable. Rules as written is law, and how honor was on the line.
You have no honor, and you are a slave to it.
Quiet Guy and I suggested letting Unlucky just take staring at Ray, and Teen was too busy trying to figure out how Roll20 worked to say much. Ultimately, Unlucky raised the white flag and just accepted his crappy rolls and started to make his character sheet. I hopped in the voice chat, and Jerk was the only one there. I sighed about how bad a start things were off to. Jerk asked me what was bothering me so much, and I expressed my concerns. His response was something like, "How delicate are you? If something like this bothers you, how are you going to survive going down to the convenience store?" After he railed against Unlucky, I already had my reservations about Jerk, but this confirmed to me I was not going to have an easy time getting along with this guy. I ignored his comment and hoped the DM would set down some behavior ground rules once we were ready to go. While we waited on Teen and Unlucky to make their characters, there was some chatting. Jerk went on about how he'd been DMing for 20 years and warned the DM he was going to do a bunch of drugs shortly in, which I hoped was a bad joke. He asked Teen how old he was, to which Teen responded that he was 15. Jerk next asked if Teen had a girlfriend, which was clearly an uncomfortable subject for Teen. He said no. That was Jerk's signal to apparently go,
You gotta hit the weights, man. Do that and you'll get some. Listen to me, I'm just trying to help you out here.
This was the first time Jerk used as just another word for women, and sadly it would not be the last time. I wish I had said something here, but I was still hoping the Dungeon Master would deal with things once we were all ready. I'm sure you can guess how that panned out by this point, since, I'm telling the story on RPG Horror Stories. Anyway, Jerk then turned to Unlucky and asked where he was when he sounded mad foreign. Unlucky explained he was from Singapore. Jerk started going on about canning people and buying black market gum. Unlucky, to his credit, stayed cool. Just after that, Jerk suddenly dropped from the call. It was unclear if he'd left or he had technical issues. I took the opportunity to tell the Dungeon Master I thought Jerk had been acting really inappropriate and disrespectful, and Quiet Guy spoke up and echoed my feelings. DM asked if we thought he should kick Jerk, to which we said yes. Unlucky and Teen stayed out of it, so that might be why the Dungeon Master didn't say anything one way or the other. Jerk popped back a few minutes later, having switched devices. Unlucky and Teen were finally finished with their character sheets, but at this point, Unlucky had stepped away because of some hot dogs he'd ordered that had just arrived, and he had to deal with the delivery guy. I swear that is true. Unlucky was taking forever for God knows what reason, so Jerk started up again. Hand to God, he said.
Anyone got any this weekend?
At this point, I was so done with this, and I was done with the DM not booting this a-hole already. Can we not use as some synonym for women? I snapped, and Jerk replied with,
Seriously, if you're saying something like that, you must be the biggest.
This clearly isn't the game for me. Later, I interrupted as I cut off the call. I then immediately left the server and the Roll20 group. I just hate how clearly Jerk's words are burned into my mind because he's just absolutely the worst person I have ever encountered in my years of playing tabletop role-playing games. I'm just glad that I left when I did, as spending a few more hours around Jerk would have been my personal hell. Instead, to get over my bad mood, I took the train into town and had a nice time doing some shopping. I don't know if there's a moral to the story, but if there is, I'd say it's don't be afraid to leave a game right away if someone is being unbearable. Alright, I've got a connected horror story of my own. Not from a TTRPG, but from a video game called Destiny. So, in Destiny, there are raids, collaborative activities that you play with other players. And I decided, after years of not doing any raids, I decided, hey, let's do some raids with some random people. What you're seeing on screen right now is footage of the first fight in the King's Fall raid. But it's a lie, because we didn't even get there. Instead, while trying to open the frickin' door, all I heard was this.
I just want to check. Is anyone here Hey, do we all know the exploits? We all know how to do this, right?
Guys, the new Arizona flavor is so good. Oh, you need to taste this.
This game's so stupid. Man.
I'm gonna go play Zelda. So anyway, yeah, I lasted 15 minutes before I quit. Look, know what is worth your time and what's not worth your time. Somebody acting like a 12-year-old Andrew Tate fan throughout the entirety of the Session Zero is more than enough reason to leave the game. Even if this guy was kicked, I mean, honestly, I probably wouldn't stick around either. The vibe is already awkward. It's already ruined. There are other games out there. This isn't the only game in existence. And so I can find another one. If this is already how bad it is, I don't want to see how bad it can get in the future. Look, maybe an established game I'm a little bit nicer, but this is no established group. It's LFG, gentlemen. The gods will not save you. Alright, and that's going to be it for today's episode of RPG Horror Stories. I hope you guys enjoyed my little bonus horror story there. If you did, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our tabletop tavern tips series. Just filmed an episode, had a good time. It's linked in the cards. And while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down into the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment. That's your dating advice? To let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own horror stories, you can send them directly to us. There's an email in the description. Send them our way to get a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next time. Farewell. Ah! No! Wait, my spleen! Ah! I can't take it anymore! Please! Someone help!